He also talks about the evolution of the eye in various organisms. Like he lists a bunch, like horses, ants, dogs, whales, lions, flies, ducks, and fish. Fruit flies have eyes. They're very different from a mammal's eyes, but they still have eyes. That he sort of says, well, if each of them was blind until all these parts miraculously came together, and because all the parts are needed for the eye to function, I guess, how did they survive without having eyes to begin with? So first of all, it's like you have a human with no eyes, and then how do they evolve eyes? I guess that's kind of what he's saying. Or you have a fully developed fruit fly and they have no eyes, so how do they survive without eyes? Because it seems so essential to their survival right now. And he kind of makes a rather sarcastic comment where he says, fortunately, each of these creatures simultaneously evolved whatever matching parts each would need: sockets, skin, eyelids, eyelashes, tear ducts, muscles to blink, etc. So I guess he's just sort of saying that, well, just, fortunately it happened because, it just, according to us evolutionists, it just popped into existence from nothing to something, The next thing, you can't have works of creationism writing here without having this little classic Darwin quote mine. Again, pertaining to something that Darwin said in his book Origin of Species when he was talking about the evolution of the eye. With that being said, you guys probably already know the quote that I'm referring to. So I'll just read the quote. To suppose that the eye, with all its imitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have formed by natural selection, seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree, period. Does this quote continue? Or does it stop there? It stops there. Classic. They don't read on. They don't continue reading it. Well, not surprised. Yeah. Next thing. Vestigial organs. Again, this is another classic argument. He claims that the vestigial organs they're not vestigial, they still have functions, like the appendix is part of the immune system or something like that. Well, the one thought that comes to my mind is, if it's part of the immune system, then why doesn't a person die when they have it removed? I mean, if it's part of the immune system, then it probably doesn't have a very vital function. It's probably not very important in the functioning of the immune system. People are still fully capable of fighting off diseases when they have their appendix removed. So, and then he has the next section where it's entitled "The Key is in the Content." So this is where he starts to discredit the whole idea of evolution by just attacking the character of the person who first came up with this idea, and that person being Charles Darwin himself, where he basically says that Darwin is a racist, and he supports this claim by using quotes from various works of his. It's mainly from the book that he wrote after The Origin of Species. I think was it called? The Descent of Man? Yeah. The Descent of Man. And where Darwin uses a lot of racial language where he refers to different human races and starts label them as higher or lower or closer to apes or gorillas or whatever. Now this is a lot of stuff that we don't really think is true now, but I mean, back then there was a lot of racial prejudice of, you know, that's just the kind of language that they used when they talked about different human races. And I mean, if you look at the DNA sequence between individuals, it's like 0.1%. I mean, very minor differences even between different races. So I mean any individual from any one race is no closer to apes or chimps than any other individual from another race. I mean, it's just, he didn't really know what he was talking about. The next section is titled His Famous Student. Now, when I first saw that, I wasn't really sure what he meant. I had a feeling I knew what he meant, because Kurt Cameron, in his video introducing the release of this book, he mentioned that in this introduction that Ray would explain Hitler's direct connection with evolution. So I had kind of a funny idea that he was going to talk about Hitler, and so yeah, he talks about evolution's connection to Hitler, as in a lot of Hitler's ideas were influenced by evolutionary ideas, mainly coming from Darwin's ideas. And there's quite a few quote mines from Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, which was kind of interesting because he does a pretty good job of referencing a lot of his stuff. Maybe a lot of the references that he uses aren't very good, but the one for the reference for this book was pretty good because it actually has a link online to the English version of Mein Kampf. So a lot of these quotes that you find, I mean, you could at least use this source to look it up and see if it actually is there. And, you know, don't just read it to the end of the quote, actually follow it and see what he was getting at. I mean, you might find that he was just referring to like animal breeding type ideas or eugenic type ideas. And he also talks about Hitler's evolutionary progression for the human to apes, where he has, not surprisingly, the Jewish people on the lowest branch, where they are closer to pure ape. He also has Oriental slightly ape predominance, Black African predominantly ape. I think in a lot of Darwin's quotes that Ray Comfort used, where Darwin actually said how the African race is more closer to gorillas, and I don't really know what he based that assumption on. So it kind of seems that Hitler's kind of taken on that same idea for whatever reason. I don't really think of this as true. It's just kind of made up on just prejudice.